This podcast is rated E for explicit.
What are you afraid of? Why do you stay hidden in the shadows from your many shades of gray? What do you ask God for when you kneel down to pray? When you get tired of hiding, but lack the courage for the deciding?
What do you want from me? It's not good, whatever it is. My mother told me. You know what I mean? Then you find someone that can be a friend to you.
I'm afraid to be more intimate because I'm afraid of what that's going to feel like.
If a straight man and a straight female are like, that's my best friend, they're like, nah, y'all are doing something, right? Like, you guys have something.
I feel like at times parents may handicap us, putting like their experiences and their influences on their child.
What you described to me is just really, truly loving another person, right? And we're not allowed to do that with other boys.
Join us for this series that explores the many shades we hide in, the many desires we fight, the many things we love that we never love in the light. The very thing you've been afraid to say.
I think I told my mom once by text, I love you, and she was like, thank you.
You may.
and so I was like, that's not happening ever again.
Very well hear it here.
Conversations like these are so important for us to have.
In our new series.
Society likes to correlate emotions as a feminine trait. And when it's a feminine trait, you're like, I'm a guy. I'm a man. I don't have that, right?
I don't care. No, I'm going to cry right now, and I don't care if I get yelled at or whatever. Crying is about to happen.
The Shades of Bae. You met me in the midst of many things. Shedding skin, sprout wings. Looking at life as a spiritual being through a human lens. Having conversations with God about so many things. This show is your invitation. The poet God is the conversation. Happy wife, happy life. Who wears the pants? Who holds the knife that cuts the slice? Whose are the hands that roll the dice? In this episode that continues our Shades of Bae series, we look through the holes in gender roles as we engage in a deep conversation inspired by an episode of Netflix's Black Mirror series called Striking Vipers. It tells the story of two old friends who reunite and discover a virtual reality video game called Striking Vipers. The game allows them to embody characters and engage in intense virtual tournaments. As they continue playing, they explore a more intimate aspect of the game, blurring the lines between reality and simulation. This newly discovered intimacy within the game unlocks doors neither knew were there, and they found themselves in an unconventional affair, one which pushed their boundaries out of the virtual into actual reality, which forced them to confront what this means for their friendship, their future, and their sexual identity. So can we talk about Black Mirror? Let's do this and like how they started out, right? They had the history of, I believe they grew up together,
right?
If I'm not mistaken. So they had this long, defined friendship.
All of them.
All of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. And so, the first part of the episode, Striking Vipers, if you haven't seen it, was focused on their how they were now and newly married. The other guy was just kind of dating around and so forth, and then they would occasionally get together for their little outings, their Thanksgivings and their birthdays and barbecues and stuff. And I think at least the way I saw it, there was a scene where one of the friend's husbands who was at a party, they were interacting, and he was trying to talk to him about something, and it just wasn't going anywhere. It was like an empty conversation,
right.
And it was like the struggle of men trying to connect and have meaningful interactions with each other. And then the friend shows up later on at the party and is like, oh, now
he blossoms.
Yes.
But I do think there's a little nuance that you may have overlooked too. Okay. Is because I think that they were really trying to set up the fact that there was something missing, right?
Yeah.
Like the fact that he was looking at that other woman, right? And he stopped looking the moment his wife came in the other room, right? Like he was bored the whole time, right? Like they really set up a scenario where he something was really missing. And when that friend came in, he blossomed because, oh God, here we go. Now I've got somebody I like, somebody I can talk to, something, and I feel like that little nuance about him being bored and looking for something was a huge part for me. It was not lost on me at all.
We go from there to them, discovering this video game, because he got that as his birthday gift.
Right.
And
living the college days, baby.
Yes. But the interesting dynamic too with them is, the best friend was so much more comfortable with playing around. He was more affectionate. He was more touchy and, and whereas in contrast, he was more like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Because I remember they had a flashback where they were playing the game and he got on him, started humping him, kind of like, that kind of, those kind of antics. And it's like, I feel like, again, all of that setting up, boundaries. How do you, what are we doing? Is this okay? You always have those people who I feel like are comfortable. That's their nature. They're always going to be pushing you. They get some kick out of it. They get a kick out of making you uncomfortable a little bit. But then in this particular situation, through the game, the circumstances of the game, it becomes something totally different. And I'll let you pick it up from there, Colin.
So, I mean, there are a few thoughts that I have in reference to all of it, right? Because I think that even when we talk about sexuality and so on, some of the questions that I had was, well, if we're going to try to label people, how would you label them? Right? Because we see in this game, they look like they're heterosexual, right?
Right.
Here's this guy, their characters is one guy and another woman, right? And then when we look at that dynamic, so if you're like, well, no, this one guy's straight, right? The husband is straight, right? If we're going to label characters, the husband's straight because he's a guy and this is another woman. Then you start to say, well, what about the friend, right? Because the friend is now this woman in this relationship. But when we see him outside of this game, he's kind of like this playboy in a sense, right? He carries himself. He can get women. He's very like, I know I have it going on. So what I think that really, and I rewatched the episode, really threw me around was like, you look at all of these different dynamics with it as a whole, right? Because
did you get that he wasn't sexually satisfied, the Playboy, that he wasn't sexually satisfied with his interactions with women? Did you?
I did get that, but he also says that he wasn't even satisfied with it with other men.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because he did, again, I had to rewatch it because I was like, you know what, I need to have a fresh mind on how all of this and kind of going with what I already knew to re-see it. But he said, hey, came back to the game and I tried to do this again. Because he was like, something was missing.
Right.
And I tried to replace what was missing. Mm-hmm. I tried it with the computer. The computer, yeah. Computer was boring. Right. I tried it with other people. I tried it with other women, and I tried it with other men. Mm-hmm. And
a polar bear.
Right.
A polar bear, right.
Yeah. and none of them hit the mark.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He's like, none of them hit the mark. It was, essentially, he's like, this whole time it was you.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So that's where I'm like, there are so many different things into this.
Right. And I think that goes back to what you were saying. It was what if you, I've heard of people say, I'm gay for you.
Correct.
Right. Not in general, you know? Mm-hmm. And so I think that happens more often than, and again, taking the sexual element of it, because I think you could have people attracted to somebody non-sexually, but everything else is there.
Right.
Like I've fallen in love with you. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And because I just love everything about you as a person. And then between that, it doesn't have to there doesn't have to be a sexual element to it. It could be if you two decide to do that, but it doesn't have to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I did feel like the way they set it up is that there was definitely much more of an emotional connection between the two of them, right?
Yes.
You know, even when they were it was just his fiance, she would be like, don't stay up all night. And she would leave and they would stay up together all night, right? Correct. And when they see each other again after those many years, you could definitely tell they're still like, don't touch me, right? But you could tell it's still that playful connection, right? Mm-hmm. And I felt like when I was watching them play, and I felt like a lot of the angst that the husband was feeling there is because he had this really wonderful connection with somebody who wasn't his wife, right? Right. That stuff that he was missing, like that he set up during that party, he was all bored and stuff. He was no longer feeling that.
Right.
Also, to go back to the question again, boxes again, society doesn't allow us to have emotional connections without sexual ideas in our head of it. So we might see that, they're having this emotional connection, but the next thought in society's mind is the sexual part of it.
Right.
So we don't allow people to be emotionally connected without sex. Mm-hmm. We put sex with the emotions all together. We don't separate it. We don't allow it. So we're saying that you're not allowed to have a emotional connection without sex, or you're lying about it. You're not.
No,
you can't have it.
I'm 100% with you on that one. But in this particular case, they do.
Yeah.
However, it's very unconventional, right? So, like, your point is definitely not lost, because if this show did not involve that one last piece that threw a wrench and everything, then it would be a regular life story that, I know that guy, right? But this one, I think, is really important. That consummation is what really makes them both think of what the hell just happened, and why can't I get you out of my head?
Right. And I think with Anthony Mackie's character, I think the contrast of how he is in the game, he's so reserved in his real life, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like he was hella thirsty.
Yeah.
And that, like he was wanting that thing like so bad once he got in the game. And that's the thing that I think about, like taking it out of that context. When you come into behind closed doors with that person that allows you to explore that part of yourself, you're in heat and in that way, because it's like, gosh, I don't get to do this very often. Mm-hmm. And so now you allow me to have this experience, and I am ready for it, And
I love the idea that in this particular virtual reality, that they're basically neuroconnectors. So this isn't something he's watching. This is something he's feeling.
That he's feeling, right.
Yes.
He's physically in on. But I also think, like, again, like, this is where it plays you and it makes you ask so many questions, because they couldn't do it in person.
Yeah.
They couldn't do it in person. Mm-hmm. It could only really be in this game.
I had questions about that, because I think, we take away from it the dynamism of sexual identity, but I also wonder if there's a question of gender identity there too, because he asks the guy, what does it feel like being a woman?
Exactly. Yes. And that is why I think that was such an important thing, because he's got to figure out these feelings I have. I know I like you, right? But now I want you. What does that really mean? And also I love the fact that he was like, yeah, it feels kind of weird. I like, the idea of understanding what it feels like to be a woman, like having a woman's body.
Maybe if he had they actually did something, he had to find out where his G-spot was.
Oh my. But I do think that sexual identity, part of that is like, and because it hit me so hard because I was thinking, I never have ever thought in my life what it feels like to have a woman's body. Mm-hmm. Right. And I think that is really an important thing to really kind of understand, how do you feel about that? What are the sensations you're feeling? What are, if you touch my skin, what does that feel like? How is that any different from now? Right. That type of things. And I really think they did such an excellent job of setting up all these scenarios. Like every scene had something that you had to actually think about and consider.
Yeah, it is a mental play because there is so many things, like I said, that you can break down on it. It isn't as clear as just like, hey, these are two guys coming together and having sex with each other. It's like, no, it's not. Yeah. It's not that just black and white. Right. It is very, very in the middle gray. Like,
yes, it couldn't be more gray.
Correct.
Yeah. I think too, the other thing too that I think of is it highlights the power, when you have a connection with somebody, how that could stimulate you on so many levels that even before, if you choose to have sexual intercourse with them, even before that, you are high all the way there.
Yeah.
Because it starts from the very time they touch you. And even before they touch you, even just as they're looking at you, as they're enjoying you physically, looking at you, and then the first touch and then everything else that comes after that. So when you have a real connection, you're high on all of it.
Yeah.
And I think with them, it was like this whole spectrum of showing how powerful their connection is.
I feel like it was even... honestly, where I started to get to, it boiled down to a power dynamics. Because let's split these relationships up, right? It feels like again, I'm just going to use it this way, in the husband-wife dynamic, the wife felt like the more powerful one in that relationship. She took the lead on things.
Right.
And you can see it in their conversations, right? She was the leader of that dynamic, right? And then when you looked at the friend on his own, he was very much so a leader in his own right? So there was this whole power shift that happened.
Yeah. Because he was dominant too. The friend was dominant, right?
Correct. Yeah. The friend was dominant. And then...
He's the one more successful, more everything.
Correct. There was that shift.
Yeah.
When they were in
the game.
Correct.
Because he became more...
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
And you brought up a good point, because my favorite character was the wife.
Correct. Yeah.
Because... truth be told, I'm much more attracted to dominant people. So, but I remember watching her reactions to everything. Like, just like I said, her basically being the boss, don't stay up all night, right? All the way to when she discovers it, right? But this is, not even to discover what is wrong? Yeah. You're going to talk to me about what's happening because something is not right, and I feel it, and you're going to talk to me, right? But it wasn't really so much of the dominance that really made me like that character so much. It was the fact that she was open to talking about it, right? And I find that is something that I don't know very many people who are, right? Something's wrong, they're mad or whatever, but she's like, we got to figure this out.
Right.
Let's talk about what this means, right?
We can't skip over the kiss because I've heard different takes on what people felt that is. But before I share mine, I'll let you guys.
What that kiss meant for them in person.
Yes. What do you think of it?
I think that they were trying to see, right? Because in this confusion, right? And I do truly think that they both didn't fully understand what this was.
Yeah.
Right? I know you in real life. And in real life, this is how our dynamic has always been. But somehow we get into this game and it has completely shifted, right? Now, can that translate into the real world? And I think that was where they were trying to see what it was. But in real life, it just didn't, it didn't quite get there. I think I don't know. For me, it just felt like for Anthony Mackie's character, again, because even how he became so dominant, the game allowed him to be more free and be a different person. And in real life, he just couldn't match up to that, I felt like.
I think that's a good point, because I think that I have a feeling that I think they both lied.
I think so too.
but it aligns with what you're saying, is in real life, he cannot be the one who steps up, right? And I feel like the lie of saying, no, I didn't feel anything, if he had said yes, that would have put him in a different position of having evolved. And I don't think in the real world he has, or at least he has not admitted to himself that. I feel like they lied just so they could be like, okay, well, back to normal. Right. You know?
I think it's interesting because I think there's multiple ways to interpret this, and I wasn't sure quite how to take it. And I was like, maybe in their heads, they think they're telling the truth. But like, I think what the game does is it breaks down a lot of the obstacles that allow them to eventually get to the point where, so there's the obstacle of just physical appearance. Like, okay, now you're looking at a woman. So at least for, say, Anthony Mackie's character, you're looking at a woman. So it's easier to like get there in the first place, right? And then it's like, okay, it's not like, I mean, it's a whole different race for starters. Like, it's like, okay, there's all these things that make it like, that detach you from reality and make it maybe easier to get there in the first place. But in real life, those things just come back into play. And
all of the boundaries, all of the trauma, everything comes back.
And so in your head, you might be like, it's just not the same. I just don't feel this. And you might really believe it in that moment because you're not cognizant of the fact that it's just the reappearance of those barriers between
you know what? I struggle with that. I watched that part several times, but I just kept looking at their eyes.
I watched it just because it was good to watch.
Excuse me. I was analyzing it for my homework. No, but I looked at their eyes, and their eyes said to me, yeah, there's something going on here, right? But even if they said no, right? But at the same time, I can understand that too, because there is in the realm of thought for this, it's a good chance that they could not be connected in real life and that it only exists there. But my real feeling is these are their feelings. Like they may get turned on sexually there, but I think that they still like each other. Like, and I felt like that from the beginning, that the only reason they could have even gotten as far as they did is because they already started at the place of actually liking each other.
I think having it in the game, having those feelings, you can deal with the feelings in a virtual, not real place. Coming now to the facing of, okay, let's face to face, and now we're dealing with this, and now we do this kiss. I also agree with both of you guys. I felt that was more to the truth of what they were saying. I didn't really fully believe them, because what do you do with that? What now do you do with that then now if you say now that it's beyond this feeling? Relationships you already have, and it creates a more complicated world now than in the game. I can leave this here and get out of it, but now I'm in the real world now, and we're stepping out of this boundary which we crossed in the game. Now we cross it in real life. What do we do with this beyond this? And I don't think they're both emotionally ready to deal with it if they were all into that.
Yeah,
I agree with you 100% on that.
It's a piece of control, because even the way that they set the date at a specific time, like, hey, we're going to do this on this date.
So that goes back to my point about why I like that wife so much. It wasn't them.
No,
the wife was so flexible to the point where she was so mad about it, but she loved her husband. So she went through trying to figure out a system that would make them both satisfied.
So I have a different perception of it, to be honest with you. I do think that the wife I do think that she loves him, but I also think that she was willing enough to do it out of her own selfish reasons.
I agree with you.
Because if you notice, there was that box exchange, right? And it was like, I want this back, right? And she went out to allow herself to explore being wanted from other people, because she didn't necessarily feel fully wanted in her husband. I think there is a piece of her that's like, this is the life that we have, and we're going to do the best to maintain this. And here's how we're going to work at maintaining this with other pieces in this.
Mm-hmm. And she said that to him at the table, if I recall correctly. When they were having the dinner, and she was trying to figure out what was going on with him.
Yeah.
I think she had said something along the lines of, people approach me all the time. I couldn't do, I had opportunities to do stuff, but I didn't because I thought
I'm loyal to you. I'm loyal to this family. Yeah.
Right. So,
and I think that's a good point, because I think that for me, I'm just so used to the situation being like we're breaking up, right? Instead of actually
trying to figure
something out. That's why I was so impressed.
Mm-hmm. I get that.
Even if you only get one day, but I get one day too.
Right.
So I wonder. This is just on the thought of this. What if you were to have a partner, and your partner, let's say you're the wife. How would you feel about your partner being in this game and doing those sort of things?
I know, personally, I probably wouldn't have a problem. Mm-hmm. Right. If you invite me to come to the game and play with y'all, that might be an issue for me. But I have had that philosophy for a while. I personally believe monogamy is very difficult. Mm-hmm. That does not mean I don't want it.
Right.
But what I feel like is, I cannot blame you for being attracted to other people or other, what I'm saying is that it is a natural thing. Right. What I hope is that our commitment is strong enough that you understand that you have to make choices, right?
Yeah.
However, I do feel like if I'm going to let you be out there doing whatever, I'm going to need you to give me the same grace.
I get that.
It goes back to what we said earlier. Men are selfish. They don't want to play with equal rules, and I don't think most men will agree with that or allow that or feel comfortable with that. So I think it's because of men are just selfish.
I get that.
No, you're right. I had one situation where I was like, let's just be each other's number one. How are you going to be knocking on my door when you've been doing this for months? Like, no, who you got in there? I don't come to your house doing that, right? But you're right, because they're selfish.
Yeah.
Can a kiss be used as a test to see who loves you best? We'll discuss that and so much more after these messages. Did your beliefs surrounding astrology help lead you to your match? Or did you discover later that they weren't quite the catch?
Would you ever go as far as to say that there is a wrong sign for somebody? Tell the truth, shame the devil.
I think if I followed it, it might have kept me out of some relationship.
Do you lean heavily on the stars in your search for love? Or did you get those scars from the fall above?
I date somebody and it's like I can tell, like, I don't know when we gonna break up, but I know why we gonna break up.
The board and I assembled to take a look at all the signs. Those that show up on the charts.
Cray-cray, just because they're a Virgo and a nice kind, so they can still be a little cray-cray.
And the others that are the matters of the heart. Listen to the Matters of the Chart, Season 4, Episode 7. And after you follow the Poet God podcast on your favorite podcasting app, a quick search of the Poet God on Twitter and Instagram will connect you to just what we have on tap. And if you're not that social, at thepoetgod.com, we got your back.
I had somebody ask me, is your mother a Pisces? Before they even want to talk to me.
That's exactly what I was talking about. That's the too deep part. That, like, anybody who's too deep into that,
and my question to them would have been like, okay, so were you breastfed?
Sorry. My intention for this podcast is for it to be an enlightening experience of love. And from what I hear, that intention is being met loud and clear.
This was amazing. I wish every high school senior who's graduating can hear this, and every college graduate can hear this. This is super, super special, and I enjoyed it 100%.
I like where you are coming from, using the word God to communicate to people, because so many people have so many different ideals of God. You seem to be on a higher spiritual plane because you seem to have a personal connection, which is a great thing. We're all God's children, but some of us just do devilish things. I think what we're going through at these times right now with this coronavirus is teaching us we all need each other.
Indeed, we do. And it is with the support of people like you, I will continue to answer the call to share what God has given me, because this is a gift I believe the world is meant to hear and see.
Going back to the whole thing about the kiss, there was another movie where a kiss was used as a test. I can't remember what you saw the movie. I can't remember the name of it, but it was with these two best friends. Well, it was a group of friends, and they found out that one of the friends in the group were gay. And because he was also, straight, presenting, or masculine presented, as I should say. Yeah. They were like, they were holding on to those traditional. You can't be gay because you fix cars. You're a mechanic. There's no gay mechanic, that kind of these,
right.
These foolishness. So anyway, he finally decided to come out to them and tell them that, I actually like dudes. Then they struggled with it. One of them in particular, who was the closest friend to him in the group. And anyway, they had a moment where they were both drinking and hanging out, and the one friend had like a drink on the table, and he was reaching over to get it, and the gay friend thought that he was trying to kiss him. So as he was reaching to get the bottle, he was sitting here. He kind of reaching to that like that, and almost kind of like touched, So the friend, the straight friend, freaked out, right? And he was like, "What are you doing?" And then fast forward towards the end, and correct me if I'm missing anything, but fast forward towards the ending part, they had a whole conversation about it. And one of the final scenes of the film, the guy was like, should we do this? Like, should we kiss and see if there's, and this was coming from the straight friend, right? Should we kiss and just see if, there's anything there? And then they did kiss. And they said that there was nothing there. But again, I think it's the same thing as is with this. Is that if you did admit to it, then first of all, I hadn't spoken with you in weeks. So what in you was curious to come and want to kiss me in the first place? Because you're supposed to be the straight one, right?
I think that's a good point, because it's along the same lines of stuff we're talking about. Because in that particular show, the guy was very upset that after all these years of life, right? He goes, "You didn't want me?" Right. I think it was more than that, because they were so tight.
Yeah.
That he's just like, "Why are you ignoring me? All of a sudden you don't spend no time with me no more." It became a very thing where he was really going like, maybe I'm feeling more than I thought I was, right?
Exactly.
And I thought it was real interesting, because he really wasn't, but he was really hurt that he was not getting the attention anymore, right? But at the same time, you could tell that there was still love there. It was just more just like, what does this mean? Right?
Yeah, I think had they explored that more, that the so-called straight one, I'm not saying he might have wanted to have a full-on, sexual experience with him, but I think he would have at least enjoyed making out.
Yeah.
Right? And so, and again, that goes back, and that's okay. Right? Yeah. If that's your area of gray, then why are you not allowing yourself to have that?
I think it's because people don't really allow you to be gray.
Mm-hmm.
But just as a whole.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Because, and I'll give you other examples. Think of when you were growing up. People were like, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Mm-hmm. You couldn't say, "I don't know." Mm-hmm. You're okay saying, "I want to be a pilot." Even if you didn't want to be a pilot, you were better off saying, "I want to be a pilot," versus being like, "I don't know." Mm-hmm. It's the gray that people have problems with. Yep. It's that black or that white that they're like, awesome. Even if I don't agree with it, awesome. I know what it is. But as soon as you make it unclear, that's where the issue is.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't give people the room to try to figure things out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Have any of you guys ever had that experience that they used in the movie where you're using a kiss to figure out if there's something there?
No.
I don't think that that's possible though. Like for me, I feel like that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right?
I feel like that's a made up thing.
Like with doesn't matter the gender of the person, essentially.
No, I'm not really
speaking.
Yeah.
So kiss, no, but lying in bed together, yes. Where
like just lying in bed together?
Well,
or do you mean like?
I think that if you look at it, is that the idea is like, is there any feeling here? There's touching or whatever, but you can tell pretty quickly. Yeah, there's nothing here, right? But that's how it manifested for me, is being in bed, people. There's no kissing though.
Yeah.
Kissing was, that's for when you really like somebody.
I don't think I have to kiss you to know I like you.
No, nobody did kissing, but we would touch. And I don't always mean sexual touching. Sometimes it would be just like hugging or being in like the fetal hug position together. That happened to me way more often than anything sexual.
I mean, I think that there are different forms of intimacy, which is the reason why I think that kissing somebody doesn't necessarily say like, hey, I'm straight, I'm gay, or this is a litmus test for that.
But movies.
Yeah.
And I think that you're good because you brought up a good point about different ways of intimacy. And I think that all of those situations in my younger days, that was what it was about. These people really felt safe and they liked me. But that was the way we expressed it, by just hugging.
Yeah.
When we would do sleepovers, that's what we did, right? If we had one bed, we were hugged.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
One thing, like something I really want to explore, I guess, is like thinking of Yahya Abdul-Maten's character, the one who was the woman in the game. I would, like an experiment I would have liked to see. I would have liked them to try having sex in the game with Yahya Abdul-Maten's character being a man, because I do think when I think of like I said before, the fact that Anthony Mackie's character asked him, what does it feel like as a woman, having sex as a woman, right? And he was like, oh my God. It's this and it's that. And I'm like, would you have felt the same? Like, because I'm trying to unpack this. It's like, would you have slept with the male character in the game if you were a man? Would you have, what is it? Was it like, I'm trying to understand what made you engage in that experience? Like what does the gender you were in the game make the experience any different? Like, would you have done it if you were a man in the game?
I think that's a good
I would
point.
say that when he was absent and he was, had sex with all these other characters in the game, that he probably knows the answer to that, because he more or less said it. He said, I did this, I did that, and it was you.
Yeah.
Right?
But that's where I just think though that the friend is who was more open.
Yes, absolutely.
Anthony Mackie is the one who is very closed off. I don't think that, truthfully, I don't think that if he wasn't a woman in the game, he would have done that. Because I still think that it was a shift in power for him. Yeah. And it gave him that because he was this female character in it.
I see.
Right? Because that's just how it worked out. Because even when you think about it, Anthony Mackie was missing out on that, but he wasn't looking for that in anybody else. Yeah. He didn't explore that. It was only the friend that did that exploration. So that's why I don't think it would have worked out that way.
And that is deep too, because I think it actually correlated to his real life.
Yeah.
He was constantly looking for that thing. And when he found it, he didn't want to give it up.
Do you think too, back when they were roughhousing on the couch and playing games and stuff, and his friend kind of doing these homoerotic things is how I would describe it with him. I think when people do that and the people on the other side of the coin allow that to happen, it's almost like this unarticulated thing that says, yeah, I can't really say to you explicitly that I'm enjoying that. I got to I got to push back a little bit. I got to do all these other things that I'm supposed to do, but I really like it.
Well, that's that intimacy.
Yeah.
Because there is a reason that boys play wrestling games because they can't say, I want to touch you. And the thing is, I do like the idea of removing sex from that because I don't feel like it's sexual. I feel like intimacy between men is a thing, but we find ways to disguise it.
You said that. You said that. And I do think that's what I think men mostly, take the path of sex because they're looking for intimacy. I mean, I know sex is
that's a whole different conversation.
But
bro.
I do also think that there's a big part of us that just want to be held.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And I would say I think a lot of times many of us would rather be held in the sex, but the way we have to, we think about intimacy is sex.
And I think
agree, it's very synonymous for people. They think that it's that, and it's like, you can have sex without intimacy. Wholeheartedly.
Yes. Absolutely. And the flip side is like, I feel like even some women who are in, heterosexual relationships is like, and I think that's what the article was saying a little bit about too, is that if the man tries to request certain things from his female partner, she looked at him like, what? You want me to do what to you? Mm-hmm. And so he's in a box there with her and he can't explore certain parts of himself with her because she has him locked into this thing, right? Mm-hmm. But he may be able to do it with another open-minded female or
explore with a man. Right.
Yeah.
Well, so we go back to the point. When people start getting in relationships, they themselves create these boxes for themselves. So this woman goes into a relationship with this man. She's expecting that this is the guidelines we're going to go. Husband and wife, this is it.
Right.
Our 2 kids.
No, you're coming
missionary
years later requesting something that wasn't agreed upon before we got married or even talked about.
Right.
So to her, that dynamic is like foreign and it's like, I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah.
So was this something that you were before that you were scared to tell me, or something that you've newly found that you now want to explore? So I think it's a complete dynamic that could create problems or more feelings for what somebody's signed up for, and also being honest with yourself in a relationship when you do start a relationships or before you get into them.
Yeah. But I think it's so funny because while you're saying that, it takes me to your question that you were saying, like, what are you scared of? Right? Like, what is your fear behind this? If your partner is coming to you and saying, hey, let's explore this together, right? They're including you in this exploration. Doesn't even mean that they know for a fact that they like it. It's just, hey, I want to try this. And I feel comfortable enough to try this with you. Mm-hmm. So let's do this together. And for you to shut it down, I'm not saying that you have to say yes to everything and whatever the case is, but, for you to shut it down, it's just like, well, really, what are you scared of? Are you scared of, as a woman, are you scared to peg your boyfriend because you think, oh, this is going to make him gay? Mm-hmm. No, it doesn't necessarily mean that. He might learn he doesn't really like it. Like, that was too much. Or he might learn he likes it, but he only wants you to do it. So back to that question, like, what are you scared of?
Yeah, and part of the happy hour conversation that was had is like one of the ladies was saying that she can't even touch her husband's butt.
Yeah.
He has a trigger with that. And she's well, why can't I
say, and there again, power dynamics. Because I know many gay men who are masculine and don't want their butts touched.
Mm-hmm.
This is true.
Because they look at that as being less dominant.
You're right.
It's stupid.
It really is.
I mean, it's stupid because I don't feel like so much of our body should dictate power.
Yes.
But it's who they identify as.
No, I mean, it is true. You do, I mean, honestly, right? Because even if we break this down with society, there's power dynamics in every situation that you look at, whether it's friendships, relationships, work, everything has some sort of hierarchy of who's at top and who's at the bottom.
It's interesting that you said top and bottom. Because I was just thinking, those terms, are used within same-sex male same-sex relationships.
No, I'm laughing because I was thinking about the whole hierarchy and physicality. Like I actually had somebody specifically say to me that he assumed I knew his sexual preferences because of his height.
What?
Exactly. And I looked at him and I was like, I don't understand what this means. Like, where did you grow up? Like, what is, I don't get it. Yes, exactly. As confusing as that is to y'all, imagine when hearing it in real life.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
So somebody's power dynamics were built up for them based on that. And I thought it was very interesting. Confusing, but
Yeah.
But, I was going to say, with the whole tops and bottoms thing, somebody who listened to the episode of the podcast, came to me at work and they were like, what is a bottom? And I had to try to explain that to them. But anyways, the whole things that come with the dominance and the submissiveness that comes with those roles. Does that happen in female? Mm-hmm. And what are the terms for that? How does that play?
Well, so there are different words in so many different ways, but you have like your stud, which is typically the more masculine one, and then your femme, which is the more feminine one.
Okay.
And that takes on, or that typically looks like a heterosexual relationship. It takes that same shift. Mm-hmm. So the masculine one is like the men, and they, in theory, it's not always the case because you have people that are thinking outside of those boxes, right. But the masculine one is supposed to be like the guy. So they're the protector. They're the one that should be providing, while the feminine one is kind of like, take care of me. I can't do for myself.
So that happens for gay men as well.
Yeah.
But I think it was so freaky. Like, I worked with this woman, right? And her wife and she were both like, she was an ex-basketball player and the wife was an ex-soccer player. Mm-hmm. And I was so confused because I was thinking that she told me she was the stud. Mm-hmm. And I just looked at her and I was like, girl, you're wearing way too much makeup today. Right.
Yeah.
But it's so funny because they both had labels in their head, but if you were to look at them from the outside, you wouldn't know which one was which, right? Based on that, right? But it was very interesting to me because the way she described it is that, yes, there are certain things that they prefer or not, but the reality is they just don't step on each other's coattails. They try to be partners more than anything else, which I thought was refreshing because I'm not used to that dynamic. I'm used to there being a more powerful one, right? In that play.
Yeah. No matter the sexuality, I think that because we think of it in that way, there is that, whether you're in a straight relationship, a gay relationship or not, right? So it's funny because even like you're saying, like, you're like, yeah, I'm looking at the both of them and I thought that you were supposed to be more masculine. What is this makeup that you're wearing and so on, right? So even it's so funny to think like...
Because she told me she was a stud, by the way. I just wanted to let you know she told me that. So
but it's not even to take away from that. But like even to say like, hey, here we are looking at these labels and then there's still these extra labels in between it, right? So we've already put you in this big box. And now let me try to get you to the smallest box that I can fit you in, right?
And I think that's precisely one of my problems is that everybody's trying to create a box instead of just seeing an individual, right?
Yeah.
Because all these boxes you have to create, just like you got a big one, you got a small one, you got a small one. Oh, wait a minute, you don't fit on this side. Okay, put this box over here. You keep going. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's so funny to me that people really, they place so much importance in that.
Boxes and letters.
Yes.
How many more letters are we going to add to?
No,
there's a lot. There's a lot more that we can add.
For sure, I'm sure. But it's just, I think that once we get to a space to allow people to be themselves, right? Once we can get to a space where we're going to be comfortable of like, who are you? I am just me.
Right.
Right. I don't have to give you a breakdown of like me is being gay, me as being masculine and being gay, me as X, Y, and Z. Like, who am I? I am this person. I went to this school, so on and so forth. And
I'm also evolving. So I'm still discovering things. Like when we got married 20 years ago, I might have been, I was of a certain level of consciousness about this, or that regarding what I like. But now, 20 years later, I am at another space.
Right.
And you took the words right out, because I was going to bring that up earlier when we were talking about that, because I think that that's another thing that I feel like a lot of couples don't do is let the other person evolve or try to evolve with them or whatever. I think just like you were describing, this is the dynamic that was set up when we got married. Right. This is all I wanted.
Yeah.
And I
feel like that, but as humans, we're constantly growing.
Yeah.
Correct.
And I think this is, I don't know, just let me know if you will draw the line in this scenario. I remember watching a documentary where this couple that has been married for a long time, and then the dude decides that, you know what? I don't want to be, I'm in the wrong body.
Yeah. And
I'm about to, make some changes. And he told his wife that, and she, obviously as any spouse would, because they already had a whole life. They already had grown children, so forth and so forth. And so she's like, why now? Why are you doing this to me now? We're whatever age we are, and you want to do this now? And he's like, I'm sorry. I have to do it. Mm-hmm. Right. And so he started to make the changes and so forth and so forth. And she had to decide what she was going to do. In this scenario, she chose to stay and to stick it out with him, which I take my hat off to her, because that's, and she said, of course they were being interviewed, and the question was asked to her, well, how are you guys relating to each other as a couple now? Because now he is she, and does that make you a lesbian now?
Right.
And she's like, no, not necessarily, but it took me a while, but the person that I fell in love with is still here.
Right.
And she said she did admit it was rough.
I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. But she chose to stick it out, as he made that transition.
Mm-hmm.
And it also would have been okay if the person had left too. Allowing the person to choose, to allow them the choice, give them your truth of where you are, and then allowing the person who you're with to make their own choice to become comfortable. So I think in any situation, it would have been okay for either one, but at least you allow the person to make the choice in what they feel is best for themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I agree with that. I think it's also understanding to say that it was tough to go through that, right? Because it is, even when you grow with a person, right? Because think about it. Somebody that you see every day, you don't really get to see their changes that much, because every day it's a little bit of a change every day.
Right.
Right. So it's not something that you notice. But if it's somebody that you haven't seen in years, you come back, you're like, oh my God, you have facial hair now. Like, my goodness. Right. Mm-hmm. But somebody that's with you, you're like, you're right. A couple of months ago, you didn't have a beard. I didn't notice that. Yeah. Right. So it's hard to get something, to have something that you're seeing grow little by little, and now saying, okay, this is a bigger change that I'm seeing in a shorter period of time.
Right.
And now I have to readjust of what I know of you visually and match it. So
I also think that's the element that sparks the flames with a lot of affairs.
Yeah.
Because I say, say you're 10 years into a marriage, your partner might have a mindset where they see you in a certain way, whether they're conscious of that or not, and they may not allow you to be your whole self. And then you find somebody who now sees you in a different light, and they see you in a way that makes you feel sexy. They make you feel all of the things that you don't normally feel with the person. And now they're seeing all of the whole you.
Yeah.
The past 10 years and whatever you've learned, however you've evolved, and you're having conversations with them that you don't normally get to hold in that space, and you're getting to be with them in a way that you aren't getting to be with your partner. And so I think that, is a spark that, a lot of affairs come out of.
Yeah.
Not saying that it's right or it's wrong, but
no, I think this would be a different rabbit hole, a different topic. But I think that I think that a lot of times, at least in my mind, I feel like a lot of times affairs happen because people aren't open with themselves or with their partners. Right? Because you aren't open enough to say like, hey, I'm not happy here, or hey, I'm missing something, or hey, you're not giving me this, right? And you're also not open enough to think of what your partner's reaction would be. Because sometimes we don't have these conversations out of fear of what their response is going to be like.
Right.
You telling me I have to change instead of just, maybe they'll be like, oh, I do need to make a change. Tell me, what can I do to be better? Right? So I think that those things really come from that and the lack of that openness and that communication. So instead of having those sort of difficult conversations, it's like, it's just easier to go somewhere else. I don't have to worry about that conversation. I can go here and get what I was looking for anyway.
That's an excellent point, though. I do feel like you're right. There's a lot of people who simply choose not to even include the partner in that evolution, right? And I do wonder sometimes, beyond the fear part of not wanting to deal with the conversation, whether or not it just is easier sometimes when they just want to leave. Like, for instance, I don't want to hurt you, but I'm realizing that you don't have what I need anymore, right? And I don't see an avenue for you. And I feel like a lot of times people tend to just not want to let go, but not want to stay. Because I've talked to people before who I know are struggling with their partners, and they talk to me about all the stuff that they know that their partner can't give them, yet they prolong staying with them. Simply because they don't want to hurt their feelings.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the dynamic was in the movie. He wasn't comfortable enough to share with his wife what was going on with him. She only found out about it. So, and also in a dynamic, would you guys consider that cheating?
Stay tuned for the next episode in our Shades of Bae series, where we'll discuss the answer to that and so much more. But what checks out as cheating is different depending on who you ask. That's for sure. I'm Mikhail Johnson, and this is the Poet God. Thank you for listening.